The alarm screamed through the small cargo ship like an angry child. Ginho put down his cup of cold coffee and looked at the screen. Something was wrong. Sora, the ship's AI, had found something in the darkness of space. "What is it?" Ginho asked. His voice was tired. He had been flying alone for 3 weeks now, carrying medical supplies to a colony that paid well, but asked no questions. "A distress signal," Sora answered. Her voice was calm and female, like a patient teacher. "It is coming from an asteroid field 4 hours from our current path. The signal is weak. It has been repeating for approximately 6 hours. Ginho rubbed his eyes. He was 29 years old, but space made him feel older. His black hair was too long, and he had not shaved in days. The mirror showed a man who had stopped caring about small things. "What kind of ship?" he asked. "Unknown. But the signal pattern is Ethan." Ginho felt his stomach tighten. The Ethan were one of the oldest races in the galaxy. They controlled the best trade routes and the richest planets. They also thought humans were barely better than animals. In 300 years of contact, they had never asked for human help. Not once. "Probably a trap," Ginho said. "Pirates using a stolen signal." "Possibly," Sora agreed. "However, I am detecting debris consistent with a military vessel. Someone destroyed that ship, Ginho. Destroyed it badly. Should have ignored it. He should have continued on his path. Delivered his cargo, collected his money, and found a bar somewhere to forget his loneliness. That was the smart thing to do, but Ginho had never been smart about these things. "Change course," he said. "Let's take a look." 4 hours later, the Magpie entered the asteroid field. Ginho flew carefully between the massive rocks, his hands steady on the controls. The debris appeared on his screen first. Then he saw it with his own eyes through the window. The Ethan ship had been torn apart. Pieces of metal floated everywhere, spinning slowly in the silence of space. Scorch marks covered everything. This was not an accident. This was an attack. "I am detecting one life sign," Sora said. "Very weak. Coming from an escape pod trapped between 2 asteroids." Ginho found the pod after 20 minutes of careful flying. It was small and white, designed for one person. The Ethan symbol glowed faintly on its side, circle with 3 stars inside. He connected his ship to the pod and opened the airlock. The smell hit him first. Blood. But not red blood. This blood was silver, and it covered everything inside the pod. The woman lay on the floor, barely breathing. She was Ethan. Ginho could tell by her silver skin and the shape of her ears, which were longer and pointed at the tips. Her hair was white like snow and her eyes were closed. She wore a torn dress that might have been beautiful once. Now it was destroyed and wet with her own blood. A deep wound crossed her stomach. Someone had tried to kill her with a blade. Ginho carried her to his medical bay. It was small and simple, designed for human injuries. He had no idea if anything would work on an Ethan body. "Sora, I need everything you have on Ethan biology," he said, laying the woman on the table. "I have very little. The Ethan do not share medical information with humans. I can tell you that their blood carries oxygen like ours, and their organs are in similar positions. Beyond that, I am guessing." Then we guessed together. For 3 hours, Ginho worked. He cleaned the wound. He found that her organs were indeed similar to human organs, but smaller and more efficient. He stitched her torn flesh with hands that remembered old training. Before he became a cargo pilot, Ginho had been a combat medic in Earth's military. He had saved lives on battlefields that no one talked about anymore. He used human medicines carefully, watching her vital signs for any bad reaction. When her heart began to fail, he shocked it back to life. When her breathing stopped, he breathed for her until she could breathe again. Finally, near midnight, according to ship time, her condition stabilized. She was alive. Barely, but alive. Ginho sat beside her, exhausted. His hands were covered in silver blood. His back ached and his head was pounding. But he felt something he had not felt in years. Purpose. The woman opened her eyes. They were violet, deep and bright like gems. She looked at Ginho with confusion, then fear, then something else. Recognition of what he was. Human, she whispered. Her voice was weak, but clear. She spoke Universal Standard perfectly, as Jinho said. You're on my ship. I found your escape pod. You were dying. She tried to sit up and gasped in pain. Jinho gently pushed her back down. Don't move. I stitched you together, but you're not healed. You need rest. The woman stared at him. You saved me, I did. Why? Jinho almost laughed. Because you were dying. What other reason do I need? She studied his face for a long moment. Her violet eyes moved across his features like she was reading a book in a language she did not fully understand. If you saved me for ransom, she finally said. You have made a terrible mistake, lady. I can barely afford fuel. I just didn't want to watch someone die. Something changed in her expression. The hardness softened, just a little. She closed her eyes again. My name is Vela, she said quietly. I'm Jinho. This is my ship, the Magpie. My AI is called Sora. She'll monitor your condition while you sleep. Vela nodded weakly. Do not contact anyone about finding me, please. No one can know I am alive. Jinho wanted to ask why. He wanted to ask what happened to her ship, who hurt her, and what an Ethan woman was doing alone in the most dangerous part of space. But she was already falling asleep, her body demanding rest to heal. He pulled a blanket over her and left the medical bay quietly in the cockpit. He sat down and looked out at the stars. Sora's screen glowed softly beside him. I noticed something interesting, Sora said. On her left wrist, beneath the blood. She tried to hide it, but I saw it when you were operating. What did you see? The royal seal of the Ethan Dominion. The personal mark of the imperial family. Jinho closed his eyes. Of course, he had not just saved some random Ethan woman. He had saved someone important. Someone whose disappearance would be noticed by very powerful people. She's a princess, he said. Almost certainly, he thought about changing course. He thought about dropping her at the nearest station and disappearing. He thought about all the trouble that was certainly coming his way. But then he remembered her eyes. The fear in them. The surprise when he showed her kindness. Someone had tried to murder a princess. And she was so afraid that she preferred trusting a human stranger over her own people. Continue on our original course, Jinho said. We'll figure out the rest later. Understood, Sora replied. For what it is worth, I think you made the right choice. Jinho was not sure about that. But right or wrong, the choice was made. And somewhere in his small medical bay, a dying princess was breathing steadily. Alive, because a simple human cargo. Pilot had decided that kindness mattered more than safety. The universe would never be quite the same. 3 days passed on the Magpie. Vela slept for most of the first day, her body fighting to repair the damage. By the second day, she could sit up. By the third, she could walk slowly around the small ship. She touched the worn metal surfaces, studied the old photographs taped to the walls, and examined every tool and machine like they were artifacts from an ancient civilization. Your ship is very small, she said on the third evening. It was not an insult, just an observation. It's enough for me, Jinho replied. He was cooking dinner in the tiny kitchen area, instant noodles with vegetables and egg. It was simple food, but it was warm and filling. Vela sat at his small table and watched him work. The steam rose from the pot, and the smell filled the cabin.
Oh, what are you making?
She asked. Ramyun. It's a food from my homeland on Earth. Korea. You have many homelands? Different places within one planet. Jinho smiled. Hundreds of them. Different countries, different languages, different foods. Humans are not very organized. He placed a bowl in front of her. She stared at the noodles floating in red soup. Then she looked at the metal sticks he gave her. You eat with these? Chopsticks. Here, I'll show you. He sat across from her and demonstrated. Vela tried to copy him, but the noodles kept slipping from her grip. After the fifth attempt, she made a small sound of frustration that was almost funny. Use the spoon, Jinho said, pushing one toward her. No shame in it. She ate slowly, testing each bite. Her expression changed from suspicion to surprise to something that might have been pleasure. This is good, she admitted. Don't sound so shocked. She almost smiled. Almost after dinner, Vela finally told him her story. Her grandmother, Empress Nera, was dying. The old ruler had held the Ethan Dominion together for 200 years, but her body was failing. When she died, the throne would pass to her chosen heir. My mother was supposed to inherit, Vela explained. But she became sick years ago. Her mind is weak now. She cannot rule. So, the choice fell to the grandchildren. You and your cousin, Jinho said. Vela nodded. Hyuk. He is older than me, and he believes the throne belongs to him. Many in the court agree. They think a male ruler would be stronger. So he tried to kill you. His assassins attacked my ship while I was traveling to see my grandmother. They destroyed my escort fleet and boarded my vessel. I escaped only because my guards gave their lives to protect me. Her voice became cold and hard. 37 people died so I could reach that escape pod. Ginho said nothing. He understood survivors' guilt. He had carried his own for years. Hyuk will tell the court that I died in an accident, Vela continued. By the time anyone learns the truth, he will already be emperor. And once he has the throne, he will never let it go. So what do you want to do? She looked at him directly. I want to go home. I want to face him. I want to take back what is mine. You need my help to get there. I have no one else. Jinho thought about it. This was exactly the kind of trouble he had spent years avoiding. Politics, royalty, alien empires, none of it was his business. He was just a cargo pilot trying to survive. But he looked at Vela, and he saw something familiar. Someone alone. Someone abandoned by the people who should have protected her. Someone who refused to give up even when everything was against her. We need supplies, he said. There's a station called Drifthold, about 2 days from here. It's not a nice place, but they don't ask questions. We'll stop there first. Something flickered in Vela's eyes. Hope, maybe, or gratitude that she was too proud to express. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me yet. We're not there yet. Drifthold Station was exactly as ugly as Jinho remembered. It was built from the corpses of old ships welded together into a massive floating city of crime and commerce. Every smuggler, pirate, and runaway in this sector knew Drifthold. It was the kind of place where you could buy anything, including things you should not want. Ginho told Vela to stay on the ship. She refused. I will not hide like a scared animal, she said. I am still a princess of the Dominion. You're a princess that someone wants dead. On this station, information sells. If anyone recognizes you, then I will wear a disguise. She wrapped herself in old human clothes, a heavy jacket, worn pants, a hood that covered her distinctive ears and hair. She looked nothing like a princess now. She looked like a refugee. They walked through the crowded corridors of Drifthold together. Ginho kept his hand near his weapon. The station was full of dangerous people, but most of them ignored the human and his hooded companion. Just 2 more nobodies in a sea of nobodies. They were buying water purification tablets when the first hunter found them. That's her, someone shouted. Ginho spun around. 4 armed men were pushing through the crowd, their weapons already drawn. They wore no uniforms, but their equipment was expensive and their movements were professional. Bounty hunters. Someone had put a price on Vela's head. Ginho said. He pushed Vela behind a market stall and drew his pistol. The first hunter fired, and the shot burned past Jinho's ear. He fired back without thinking, and the hunter dropped. The crowd scattered screaming. In the chaos, Ginho grabbed Vela's hand and pulled her through a side corridor. The remaining 3 hunters followed. They ran through twisting passages and crowded rooms. Ginho knew Drifthold well. He had hidden here before, years ago, when the military was looking for deserters. He led Vela through shortcuts and secret paths that most visitors never learned, but the hunters were good. They stayed close. In a dark storage room, Jinho stopped running. There was nowhere left to go. The door behind them opened, and the 3 hunters entered. Give us the girl, the leader said, and you can walk away. Jinho moved before the man finished speaking. He had not fought in years, but his body remembered. Combat was like a language. Once you learned it, you never truly forgot. He hit the first hunter in the throat, took his weapon, and shot the second in the leg. The third swung at him with a knife, and Jinho broke his arm with a movement so fast that Vila could not follow it. In 10 seconds, all 3 hunters were on the ground. 2 were dead. 1 was screaming in pain. Jinho stood over them, breathing hard. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. From memory, from the person he used to be. Who hired you? He asked the surviving hunter. The man spat blood. Everyone. The bounty is 10 million credits. Every hunter in the sector is looking for her. Ginho knocked him unconscious and turned to Vela. She was staring at him with wide eyes. She had seen aliens fight before, but never like this. Never with such efficient brutality. Who are you? She whispered. I told you. I'm a cargo pilot. Cargo pilots do not fight like that. Jinho looked at his hands. They were covered in blood again. Human blood this time. I used to be a soldier, he said. A combat medic. I served in the colonial wars, the bad ones that Earth doesn't talk about. I learned how to save people. I also learned how to kill them. Hey, he met her eyes. I left because I was tired of being good at hurting people. Vila was silent for a long moment. Then she stepped forward and took his hand. Let me see your wounds, she said. What? You are bleeding. Let me help. She led him back to the ship and cleaned his cuts with gentle hands. It was strange, this reversal. The princess taking care of the pilot. The alien healing the human. People think humans are animals, Vila said as she worked. I was taught to believe it. I was taught that you were primitive, violent, and stupid. And now? Ginho asked. She finished bandaging his arm and looked up at him. Now, I think we were fools. They left Drifthold that night, flying fast toward Ethan space. Behind them, the bounty hunters spread the word. The princess was alive. She was protected by a human who fought like a demon. The hunt had only begun. The journey to Ethan space took 11 days. 11 days of hiding from patrols, avoiding busy shipping lanes, and jumping through empty systems where no one would look for them. Ginho had never worked so hard to stay invisible. On the 8th day, his brother called. Taiwan's face appeared on the communication screen, looking tired and serious. He wore the uniform of Earth's United Fleet, a high-ranking officer with medals and responsibilities. He was 5 years older than Jinho, with the same dark hair, but harder eyes. I know what you're doing, Taiwan said, without greeting. The entire intelligence community knows. A human cargo pilot helping an Ethan princess escape assassins? It's the biggest story in 3 sectors. Low to you too, brother. Isn't it a joke, Jinho? Earth's government is watching. The Ethan Dominion controls hyperspace routes worth trillions of credits. If their succession goes one way, we benefit. If it goes another way, we lose everything. I'm not doing this for politics. Then why? Why risk your life for an alien who would have walked past you on the street without a second look? Ginho glanced at Vela, who was listening from across the cockpit. She said nothing, but her eyes were steady. "'Cause it's right," Ginho said. "Because someone needed help, and I could give it. That's all." Taiwan shook his head. "You always were the idealistic one. Our father would be proud. Our father is dead. I know. But his stupidity lives on in you." The connection ended. Ginho stared at the blank screen for a long moment. "Your brother does not approve," Vela said. "My brother thinks kindness is weakness. He's been that way since we were children. And you disagree?" "I think kindness is the only thing worth fighting for." Vila said nothing, but she looked at him differently after that, like she was seeing something new. On the 11th day, they reached Varith Prime. Ginho had seen many planets in his years of traveling. Earth with its blue oceans and green lands, Mars with its red deserts and dome cities, a dozen colony worlds with their own strange beauty. But nothing had prepared him for this. Varith Prime was a world of floating cities. Massive structures of crystal and silver hung in the sky, connected by bridges of light. The planet below was covered in forests of purple trees and oceans of liquid gold. 2 suns burned in the sky, one white and one pale blue, casting strange double shadows across everything. beautiful, Jinho whispered. What is home, Vila said. Her voice was heavy with emotion she tried to hide. They landed on a platform in the capital city, and guards surrounded them immediately. Ethan soldiers in silver armor, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. They looked at Ginho with open hatred. A human, the guard captain spat. You brought a human to the sacred world. This human saved my life, Vela said. Her voice had changed. It was harder now, more commanding. The voice of a princess. He is my guest and will be treated with respect. Psh, Princess Vela. Psh. The captain bowed stiffly. Lord Hugh announced your death. He said your ship was destroyed in an accident. As you can see, I am not dead, and it was no accident. Take me to the court immediately. The palace was even more impressive than the city. Halls of crystal stretched in every direction, filled with light that seemed to come from nowhere. Ethan nobles walked these halls in robes of flowing silk, their silver skin glowing faintly in the brightness. They all stopped to stare at Ginho. He felt their eyes on him like physical weight. Some looked disgusted. Others looked curious, like scientists examining an unusual insect. None of them looked welcoming. A young noble stepped into their path. He was tall and handsome by Ethan standards, with cold violet eyes and an arrogant smile. Cousin, he said to Vila. What a surprise. We thought you were dead, Hugh. Vila's voice could have frozen water. You seem disappointed to see me alive. Not disappointed, merely confused, and troubled by your choice of companion. He looked at Jinho with open contempt. A human. In our palace. Our ancestors would be horrified. Out. Our ancestors are dead. I am alive. And this human is the reason. How touching. A princess saved by an animal. The poets will write songs about it. Ginho said nothing. He had faced worse insults from better enemies. Words meant nothing. But Vela stepped forward, and her voice rang through the hall. This man is not an animal. He is braver and more honorable than any of you. He risked his life for a stranger. He fought for someone he had no reason to protect. He showed me kindness when my own people tried to murder me. She turned to face the gathered nobles. Dozens of them now, drawn by the commotion. I name him my shield-bearer, she announced. The crowd gasped. Hugh's face twisted with rage. The shield-bearer bond was ancient, older than the empire itself. It was a sacred connection between a royal and their chosen protector. It meant that Jinho was bound to Vila by honor, and she was bound to him. He would share in her glory and her shame. He would have the right to stand beside her in any situation, including the throne room itself. No alien had ever been named shield-bearer, not in 3,000 years of Ethan history. You cannot do this, Hugh said. His voice was shaking with anger. The court will never accept. The court will accept what I decide, Vela interrupted. Or are you confessing that you plan to steal my throne before I have a chance to claim it? Huck fell silent. His eyes promised violence, but he could say nothing more in public. He turned and walked away, his followers hurrying behind him. Vila watched him go. He will challenge me soon. He has no choice now, you know, Ginho said. I'm ready. That night, Vela took Jinho to meet her grandmother. Empress Nira's chambers were quiet and dim. The old ruler lay in a bed of silk and light, her silver skin faded to gray, her white hair thin and fragile. She had been beautiful once. Now she was dying, but her eyes were still sharp. Violet and piercing, they found Ginho immediately. Come closer, human, she said. Her voice was weak but clear. Ginho approached and knelt beside her bed. It seemed appropriate, though no one had told him to. The Empress reached out with a trembling hand and touched his face. Her fingers traced his features, his brow, his cheeks, his jaw. She was memorizing him by touch. You saved my granddaughter, she said. Double quotes. Yes, Empress. Why? We have given your kind nothing but contempt. Ginho thought about the question. Because kindness isn't about reward. It's about who I want to be. The Empress was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled. a small, sad smile that carried 200 years of wisdom. Your kind burns so briefly, she whispered. Human lives are like flames, here and gone in a moment. We Ethan live for centuries. We think it makes us superior. She shook her head slowly. But I have watched your species for a long time, and I have learned something. What is that, Empress? You burn briefly, but you burn so bright. She closed her eyes, exhausted by even this small conversation. Protect my granddaughter, human. She is the future of my people. Help her become the leader I know she can be. I will, Jinho promised. I believe you. Strange, isn't it? I have known thousands of Ethan, and trusted perhaps 10. I have known you for 5 minutes, and I trust you completely. She laughed softly. Perhaps I am simply old and foolish. Perhaps you are wise enough to see what others cannot, eh? The Empress smiled again. You are kind, human. Kinder than we deserve. Bila led Genho from the chamber. In the hallway, she stopped and faced him. My grandmother likes you, she said. Is that good? It is rare. She likes almost no one. Jinho looked back at the closed door. She is dying. Yes, she has days left. Perhaps a week. Vila's voice was calm, but Jinho could see the pain beneath it. When she is gone, Hugh will make his move. He will invoke the right of dominion. What is that? An ancient law. A challenge of combat to determine the rightful ruler. It is brutal and final. The loser either dies or surrenders all claim to the throne. And you will have to fight him. Bella nodded. I am still weak from my injuries. He knows this. He is counting on it. Ginho thought about the promise he had just made to a dying empress. He thought about all the people who had given their lives so Vila could escape. He thought about what was right and what was smart, and how those two things were rarely the same. You won't fight alone, he said. Viola looked at him with those violet eyes. What do you mean? The shield-bearer bond. It means I can fight in your place, doesn't it? Technically, yes. But the right is dangerous. Hugh has trained for combat his entire life. You are human? Yes. Ginho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made peace with death a long time ago. Let him underestimate me, he said. It will be his last mistake. The Hall of Ascension was the oldest building on Veroth Prime. It had stood for 5,000 years. Through wars and plagues and the rise and fall of dynasties, its walls were carved from black stone that seemed to swallow light. Its floor was a perfect circle, stained dark with the blood of countless warriors. Today, it would see something new. Jinho stood at one end of the arena. Wearing simple fighting clothes borrowed from the palace guards, he had refused the ceremonial armor they offered. It would only slow him down. At the other end, Hugh waited in magnificent battle gear. His armor was silver and gold, designed to intimidate as much as protect. He carried 2 curved blades that gleamed with inner light ancient weapons, passed down through generations of Ethan royalty. The stands were full. Every noble in the empire had come to watch. They whispered to each other behind their hands. Pointing at the human who dared to stand in their sacred arena, he will die in seconds, Ginho heard someone say. Perhaps she chose him because she wants to lose, another replied. A clever way to surrender without admitting defeat. No Ethan would surrender to that creature. Ginho ignored them all. He focused on Hugh, studying his movements, his stance, the way he held his weapons. Every fighter had patterns. Every warrior had weaknesses. Ginho just had to survive long enough to find them. Vila sat in the royal box, watching with a face carved from stone. Only Jinho could see how tightly her hands gripped the arms of her chair. Last night, she had come to his room. You do not have to do this, she said. I can fight my own battle. You can barely lift your arms above your head. The wound hasn't healed completely. Then I will lose with dignity. No. Jinho took her hands in his. Her skin was cool and smooth, like touching polished metal. I didn't save you just to watch you lose everything. I didn't bring you all this way to see you die in that arena. Nah. His name sounded different when she said it. Softer, More important, why do you care so much? I have given you nothing. My people have treated you like dirt. He thought about the question. Really thought about it, 'cause you changed, he finally said. When you first woke up on my ship, you looked at me like I was less than nothing. But then you learned. You grew. You admitted you were wrong. He squeezed her hands gently. That takes courage. More courage than fighting. I've known humans who never managed it. Vela said nothing. But she did not pull her hands away. I am afraid, she whispered. If you die tomorrow, then you'll carry on. You'll fight. You'll win in your own way. That's what survivors do. And if I cannot, Ginho smiled. Then I'll just have to not die. Now, standing in the arena, he remembered that conversation. He remembered the look in her eyes, the fear she tried to hide, the hope she was afraid to feel. He would not let her down. A trumpet sounded. The crowd fell silent. An ancient official stepped forward to announce the rules. This is the right of dominion, he declared. A battle to determine succession. The fight continues until one combatant yields or can no longer continue. Killing is permitted, but not required. Both fighters have accepted the risk of death. He looked at Ginho with barely disguised contempt. In accordance with the shield-bearer bond, the human Ginho fights in place of Princess Vela. May the ancestors judge fairly. The official retreated. The trumpet sounded again. Hugh attacked immediately. He was fast. Faster than any human could ever be. His blades were silver blurs, cutting through the air with deadly precision. Ginho barely managed to dodge the first strike. The second caught his arm, drawing a line of red blood. The crowd cheered. Ginho fell back, circling, trying to create distance. But Hugh pressed forward relentlessly. Another strike. Another wound. Blood dripped onto the ancient stones. Is this the best humanity can offer? Huck laughed. A bleeding, stumbling fool? I expected more from the man who killed my hunters. Ginho said nothing. He was watching, learning. Hugh was fast and strong, but he was also arrogant. He left openings when he gloated. Small windows of vulnerability that a patient fighter could exploit, but exploiting them meant getting close. And getting close meant taking damage. Ginho made his choice. He stopped retreating. When Huck swung, Ginho stepped forward instead of back. The blade cut deep into his shoulder, but Ginho was inside Huck's guard now. He drove his fist into Huck's throat with all his strength. The Ethan stumbled back, choking. The crowd went silent. You talk too much, Ginho said. Hugh's eyes filled with rage. He attacked again, faster and more brutal than before. His blades were everywhere at once. Ginho couldn't block them all. He took a cut to his leg, his chest, his face. But he kept fighting. He kept moving forward. Every time Huck thought he had one, Ginho rose again. Every time the human should have fallen, he stayed standing. Blood covered him now, red rivers flowing from a dozen wounds. Any normal person would have collapsed from shock and pain. Ginho is not normal. He had been trained in the worst wars humanity ever fought. Wars where the enemy was stronger, faster, and better equipped. Wars where the only way to survive was to want victory more than you feared death. Wars that taught him the most important lesson of combat: the body could take more punishment than the mind believed possible. Hugh began to slow. Not much, but enough. His attacks became less precise. His breathing grew heavy. He had expected an easy victory, and the extended fight was draining him. Why won't you fall? Hugh screamed. You should be dead. Humans are stubborn, Ginho gasped. Haven't you heard? He saw his opening. Hugh raised both blades for a killing strike. It left his left side exposed for just a moment. Ginho remembered something from his medical training, something he had learned about alien biology while studying Sora's databases. The Ethan had a cluster of nerves on their left side, just below the ribs. It controlled their balance and coordination. A hard strike there would disrupt their entire nervous system. Ginho threw himself forward. Hugh's blades came down, cutting deep into Ginho's back. The pain was indescribable. but Jinho's fist found its target, driving into Hyuk's side with the last of his strength. The effect was immediate. Hyuk's legs buckled. His weapons fell from his hands. He collapsed onto the bloody stones, his body twitching and spasming. Ginho fell beside him, unable to stand any longer. The arena was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Slowly, painfully, Jinho pulled himself up to his knees. He looked down at Hyuk, who was struggling to move, but couldn't control his limbs. Yield, Ginho said. His voice was barely a whisper. Hyuk's eyes burned with hatred. I would rather die than die. But know that she'll still win. She'll still be Empress. Everything you did will mean nothing. The silence stretched. The whole empire was watching, waiting to see what would happen. Finally, Hyuk closed his eyes. I yield, he said. The crowd exploded. Some cheered. Some wailed in disbelief. Some simply sat in stunned silence, unable to process what they had witnessed. A human had won the right of dominion. A human had defeated the greatest warrior in the Ethan Empire. Ginho collapsed onto his back, staring up at the ancient ceiling. His vision was fading. He had lost too much blood. His body was finally failing, but then someone was there, kneeling beside him. Cool hands touching his face. Violet eyes filled with tears. You impossible man, Vela whispered. You beautiful, impossible man, did I do good? Jinho managed. You did perfectly. Healers swarmed around him, pressing devices to his wounds, pumping medicine into his veins. Vela held his hand through all of it, refusing to let go. The last thing Jinho saw before darkness took him was her face. The princess, who had become an empress. The stranger, who had become something more. He smiled and let himself rest. When he awoke, 3 days had passed. He was in a bed of silk and light, surrounded by machines that hummed with healing energy. Vela sat beside him, reading from a datapad. She looked tired but peaceful. Welcome back, she said. How bad is it? You have 17 major wounds, 4 broken bones, and you lost almost half your blood. The healers say no human should have survived. She put down her datapad and looked at him seriously. They also say no human should have been able to fight with those injuries. You should have been unconscious after the 3rd wound. Shunho shrugged, then winced at the pain. I had a good reason to keep going, the throne. Uvela was silent for a moment. Then she leaned forward and did something unprecedented. She kissed his forehead. It was brief and gentle, but it meant everything. In Ethan culture, such physical affection was reserved for family or partners. For an empress to show such intimacy to anyone, let alone a human, was revolutionary. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. Jinho closed his eyes. Feeling her cool touch on his skin? Any time, he said, and he meant it. Empress Nira died on a quiet morning. 6 days after the right of dominion, Vela was beside her, holding her hand. The old ruler had waited just long enough to see her granddaughter secure the throne. Now, finally, she could rest. You chose well, Nira whispered with her last breath. The human. He is special, I know, grandmother. Do not let him go. Souls like his are rare in any species. Then her eyes closed, and 200 years of rule came to an end. The funeral lasted 3 days. The entire empire mourned. Billions of Ethan watched as the old empress was carried through the streets of the capital, her body wrapped in robes of pure light. They sang ancient songs of farewell. They wept for the ruler who had guided them through peace and war alike. Ginho watched from a distance. He was still healing, still covered in bandages and scars. But he would not miss this moment. Vela needed him there, even if she was too proud to ask. On the 4th day, the coronation began. The Hall of Ascension, still stained with blood from the rite, was transformed into a place of beauty and ceremony. Flowers from 100 worlds covered the dark walls. Light poured through windows that had been sealed for centuries. The entire empire gathered, either in person or through screens that broadcast to every planet. Vela walked a long path to the throne alone. She wore robes of silver and violet, the colors of her family. A crown of crystal and starlight waited for her at the end. The ancient official who had announced the right now spoke words that were older than the empire itself. Words of power and responsibility. Words that bound a ruler to her people forever. Do you accept the burden of the throne? The weight of 1 billion souls upon your shoulders? I accept, Vela said. Do you swear to protect this empire from all enemies, within and without? I swear. Do you promise to rule with wisdom and compassion following the path of your ancestors? Vela paused. This was where tradition expected a simple agreement. But Vela had never been traditional. I promise to rule with wisdom and compassion, she said. But I do not promise to follow the path of my ancestors in all things. The crowd murmured in surprise. The official looked uncertain. Our ancestors were great, Vela continued. But they were not perfect. They taught us to look down on other species. They taught us that we were superior simply because we lived longer and built higher. They were wrong. She turned to face her people. Her voice carried to every corner of the hall, to every screen across the empire. 6 months ago, I was dying in an escape pod, betrayed by my own blood. A human found me. A human saved me. A human risked everything he had to bring me home. And when my enemy tried to take my throne through combat, a human fought in my place and won. She pointed to where Ginho sat in the crowd. Every eye turned to him. For the first time, they looked at him not with contempt, but with something approaching respect. His name is Jinho. He is braver than any Ethan I have ever known. He showed me that strength is not about how long you live or how tall you stand. It is about what you do with the time you have. It is about choosing kindness when hatred would be easier. It is about standing up for strangers because it is right. She turned back to the official. I will not follow ancestors who would have turned away from such a man. I will forge a new path, a better one. She knelt before the throne. The official, after a moment of hesitation, placed the crown upon her head. Then rise, Empress Vela. Rise and lead. Vela stood. The crown blazed with inner light. And across the empire, billions of Ethan cheered for their new ruler. 1 week later, Empress Vela made her first official decree. I hereby establish formal diplomatic relations with the human collective of Earth. Our two peoples have been strangers for too long. It is time to become friends. The announcement shocked the galaxy. The Ethan Dominion, which had ignored humanity for 3 centuries, was suddenly offering partnership, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, shared technology, a new era of cooperation. And for their first ambassador to the Dominion, the humans chose Jinho. He tried to refuse. He was a cargo pilot, not a diplomat. He barely knew which fork to use at fancy dinners. He was completely unqualified, Vela asked him personally. I don't want some politician who will say the right words and mean nothing, she told him. I want someone I trust. Someone who understands both our peoples. Someone who will tell me the truth, even when it is difficult. I'll be terrible at this, Jinho warned. Probably. But you will be terrible in an honest way. That is more than most ambassadors can claim. So Jinho became Ambassador Jinho, representative of humanity to the Ethan Empire. He moved into a beautiful house in the capital city. He learned to wear formal clothes and attend endless meetings. He hated almost every minute of it. But he stayed. Because Vela needed him. Because this was important. Because sometimes doing the right thing was uncomfortable. His brother Taiwan visited 2 months after the coronation.